James, I've got to ask you about Anthony Fauci and these claims that the White House are trying to discredit him. He's not been as prominent, perhaps. Others are saying every time Trump criticises him, Trump's numbers go down. What's your take on all of this?
Well, look, Anthony Fauci has basically become the Norman Swan of American politics and the American handling of the COVID crisis. He set himself up as this voice of authority and science against Trump's supposed mishandling of the disease. But, you know, just to go back to Andrew Cuomo, who we were talking about there, some 40% of the deaths in the United States occurred on his watch, largely because he ordered nursing homes to shovel coronavirus patients into those facilities with predictable tragic results. Fauci also is not completely without sin himself. You know, early on in the pandemic, going back to February, he was saying, I don't think this is a big deal. I think people should still go to restaurants. I think people should still go to bars. And only later did he start to change his tune. So he's been fairly inconsistent, but because he has this position where he stands up to Trump or stands against Trump, then he's feted by the liberal media.
Yeah, and I remember at the start of the year, that around the time of the Lunar New Year, quite a lot of the left was saying you've got to get out to these Chinese restaurants, stand with China, don't let them bash Wuhan, etc. And sure enough, that was a great sort of period of transmission of the disease. Corey, we saw in the UK, obviously, moves by Boris Johnson on Huawei. He's backflipped on his decision. About time, I say. It'll cost them money and time to rip Huawei out of the existing network, and obviously they won't go forward with 5G. The Trump administration, too, are starting to restrict the visas of Huawei employees into the US. But Canada, we're talking about the Five Eyes here, Canada is still not knocked back involvement of Huawei in their network. Will that be the next fight?
I think it will, Peter. Around the world, I think people are recognising the dangers that Communist China presents and how they're actually subverting information or our individual sovereignty through technology. And we discussed this at length on Sunday night on the show I hosted for Paul Murray. But Canada is recalcitrant because it's led by a lefty who doesn't want to admit that there's anything wrong with communism or totalitarian governments or government knowing what's best for everybody. We absolutely need to get into it. And if I can just comment on Trump, why would the Chinese be complaining about some of their executives being banned from going there? The Chinese government banned 2 of our politicians from going there, Andrew Hastie and James Patterson. You can't have your cake and eat it too, China. That's the big message, I suspect.
James, how do you see the Huawei issue, both the Boris Johnson backflip, which I think is incredibly important, and it comes, I think, because a lot of ructions were there on his backbench, and a lot of the security elite in London basically said, you're crazy, Boris, you need to wake up to yourself. And I think public opinion with COVID pushed him. But also Corey's point about Canada, are they able, with the current incumbent, to move on this issue and change their mind?
Yeah, well, that's a real worry because Justin Trudeau, you know, is, well, he's not the strongest pro-Western friend the West has ever had, is he? But it is really a worry because Canada, if you have one weak link in that Five Eyes arrangement, then as you would know, it means that intelligence sharing between these groups and these countries becomes incredibly difficult. I really do think it's fascinating, though, how public opinion has led the charge on this, as you said, in Britain and elsewhere, that we are now, as a society now, so aware of the threat that the Chinese Communist Party has posed, not just before COVID, but now after, and then everything else we're hearing about them, from Uyghur treatment to organ harvesting, that there has to be, I think, a real push in these democracies to ensure that Huawei does not have that seat at the table for critical infrastructure.
Corey Bernardi, James Morrow, as always, thank you for your time.